And we are live. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Dardish show. I am so excited for today's show. We have a podcaster with us today all the way from where?
Dubai.
Welcome to Kuwait, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the Dardish show, a place to sit back, relax, and enjoy a good conversation. Millennial Mirrors.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm used to being the one doing the interviewing, so now
the tables turn.
Yeah, right.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah.
How's it going, man?
Going good here for a few days, and it's been good to be back in Kuwait. I haven't been back in a while, so catching up with friends, doing a couple of Millennial Mirrors interviews.
Nice.
Yeah, so nice to do.
That's the cool thing about having a podcast. Anywhere you go, you can take it with you. Can you introduce yourself real quick for the people who don't know you, just real quick?
Sure. So it's me, Mshari Alonaizy. I'm a co-founder of a company called Millennial Media out of Dubai. And we are a podcast media production company. So we produce original content. Mm-hmm. Currently we have 2 live podcasts, Millennial Mirrors, where we just launched season 2. I'm the host of that one. And it's kind of just each episode I interview different people about different cultural issues that affect millennials growing up in this region. And then Yalla is actually the story of my co-founder and I starting Millennial Media. So from like episode 1 where we came up with the idea to naming it, to then trying to show the numbers to VC people who are like, you people are crazy, you can't do this, and all that kind of stuff. So
wow.
And yeah, so that's pretty much me.
Nice, man. I've got so many things I want to talk to you about today, but let's start with podcast in Dubai.
Okay, shoot.
How's that going, man?
It's going well. I think the podcasts in general are picking up in the region. Mm-hmm. People are starting to become more familiar. A lot of people are starting their own personal podcasts, which then just helps the general kind of population be more educated about podcasts because they hear about them, their friends tell them, oh, hey, I'm starting a podcast, listen to this. And we've got some great content creators out in Dubai. We've got, besides Millennial Media, you've got Dikkan Media, who have some amazing content that they're putting out. Kerning Cultures is doing some amazing things as well. So I think we've got some really good, interesting content creators in the region. Even in Saudi, you've got Mustadfir, and Jordan, you've got Sot. So it's kind of picking up all around.
So when you say they're doing amazing content, what does that mean?
So I think content, amazing content, it depends on your definition and what kind of content you like to consume. So I think as long as the content you're creating is of a high enough quality that it's consumable comfortably, and I think as long as it's interesting and it has a perspective, I think then you've got something there. And at the end of the day, your listeners and your download numbers will tell you whether or not people are finding your content amazing really quickly. So I think I'm not going to be out, not all the content out there is for me, but then again, I'm not the target market for all the content out there, but I can appreciate it for what it is.
Nice. I like the names, man, like Dikkan, Finial, Yalla.
We're going retro and old school.
Yeah, man, and very Arabic and very authentic. Yeah. I like that. So tell us about Finial. So you guys create podcasts for people?
Well, we do sort of. So we have 2 kind of lines of business. Mm-hmm. One is our own original content, which we create content that we feel is commercial, meaning that we can garner enough listenership that we can kind of put advertising on it, and sell advertising on it. And then the other thing is branded shows. So for that, companies would come to us and be like, hey, listen, we are bank XYZ or we are retailer ABC, and we want to create an interesting podcast that would be appreciated by our customers. And then we would kind of come up with some pitches for them and start creating podcasts for them in that way.
That's an amazing idea, man. I really think that's Sajjari. You see companies that talk about not wanting to be on social media or Instagram before, but now they are. And now they're even heading to other mediums like YouTube and podcasts.
So I think podcasts are a very interesting medium to work with in general. Because of the fact that you don't have that, you can't see, right? So it's only audio. It's extremely intimate, and and you can play around a lot with it in the sense that, like, even if you're supposedly, let's say you're creating a fictional podcast, okay, you've got the sound effects, you've got like voice actors, you've got all these things that you could be doing. So you can play around with podcasts in a way that you can't necessarily play around with the other things that you're working on as a company for your social media stuff. For example, GE created a branded podcast with Gimlet Media in the States, where it's a science fiction show, which taught and so you're literally listening to a science fiction story play out, and it doesn't even say anything about GE. They're not using GE products or whatever, but it's like a very technological kind of advanced show, and they're kind of trying to cure some sort of disease that's spreading, and then you realize all the technology that's being used is technology that GE creates and works with. So it's under the line marketing, it's subtle, but it's like super interesting and engaging. And all you see is by GE at the bottom of the artwork. So it's not in your face.
I think nowadays we live in an age where people are very smart when it comes to marketing and advertising. I mean, like the consumers. So they know when people is selling them, or they know when people are creating this is an ad video or not. So this subtle branding is something that a lot of people or a lot of companies are incorporating nowadays.
It's a great way of also, I think, storytelling is a great way of connecting emotionally with your consumer in a way that you wouldn't be able to do necessarily with regular advertising. Just because if you get them involved in a story and you get them emotionally, invested in a story, and then your brand is linked to that story, it's just under the line they connect with it. You know what I mean?
Talking about stories.
Yeah.
What's your story, bro?
What's my story? You're gonna have to be a little more specific. I have a lot of stories.
No, so what got you to this point of living in Dubai, starting a media company?
Interesting. Okay, sure. Living in Dubai. Let's start with that one. So I'm half Saudi, half Kuwaiti. My dad is Saudi, my mom's Kuwaiti. Born and raised here. Studied abroad. Worked here till I was 29, and then I decided I wanted to move. And so I kind of moved to Dubai. I think 10 days before my 30th birthday, I decided that's it, I'm making a move.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Without having a job or?
So no, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a plan, and I kind of just handed in my resignation, and I was like, peace, I'm going to Dubai.
Wow.
Luckily, the company I was with agreed to keep me on consultancy basis and stuff like that, and I kind of things just worked out. I mean, when it comes to my professional career, I always just say, work hard, be a good person, and things will generally work themselves out. You know what I mean?
I love that, man.
Yeah.
I swear to God, it's so simple. It might seem cliche to a lot of people, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Work hard and have the right intentions and be good to people. Things are eventually gonna work out for you.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's worked out. Knock on wood, guys. All right. In case so far we'll see.
Nice.
But so that's how I ended up there. I was working in leadership development and strategy, and I decided to start Millennial Mirrors last year. Actually, the year before last, I decided to start it, and then I launched it last year. And it kind of just came out of a couple of things I saw happening in my life professionally and personally, in the sense that a lot of people around my age were kind of dealing with all these internal conflicts. And I realized it was mainly because of the fact that our generation is very individualistic in the sense that with everything that's happened in our societies and with media and technology, you want to be an individual. And then we're raised and we grow up in a culture which is all about the collective. And that tends to kind of trip you up in different ways, depending on who you are and depending on how you want to express yourself as an individual or what you care about. But generally these conflicts tend to arise whether it's in your personal life or your career or all that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of seeing it happen a lot. And I decided I wanted to kind of have a medium to kind of talk about it, which is why I started Millennial Mirrors. And it was just a passion project. It was supposed to be literally 10 episodes. That's it. And I remember I even announced on my first episode, we're just doing a 10 episode run, blah, blah, blah. And my mentor at the time was like, why are you saying 10 episodes? You don't know where this is going to go. I'm like, where is it going to go? It's just a freaking like 10. and little did I know, you know what I mean? So that happened. And then I realized I really loved the medium.
You loved media?
I love the medium of podcasting.
Okay.
And so I decided to do it professionally. So
I love that story, man. And when you say your mentor told you that,
yeah,
what does that mean?
So I keep saying so. Can you tell I'm nervous? I'm not used to being the one answering the questions. I'm used to being the one asking them. I've had a few mentors throughout my career. I feel having a mentor is a great way of, when you're feeling stuck or you're feeling unsure of what you kind of want to do, having someone who's maybe more experienced or older and that you look up to and whose advice you think like would actually benefit your situation at the moment is a great thing to have. So, and I always recommend this to friends when I feel like they're kind of unsure of what direction to take. They know kind of generally what they want to do, but they're unsure kind of how to take those steps. I think finding yourself a mentor is a great way to kind of go about that.
Nice, man. I remember us talking the other day about CTI.
Yeah. So CTI was another thing I did. That was the same year that I did, that I launched Millennial Mirrors. And for those of you who don't know, CTI is a coaching school. And I think that was also a very good skill set to learn while I was doing Millennial Mirrors, because I was learning all these kind of tools on how to ask questions in a good way and how to kind of listen to what's happening in the room, how to be in the space and make the person in front of you feel comfortable and all of that. And that really helped in my interviews, because a lot of the time people would just show up to the interview. I've never met them before, and then like bam, they sit down and I'm like, so what does the word Abe mean to you? You know what I mean? And it's just like you have to get them really, really comfortable really, really quick. So those coaching skills definitely kind of kicked in.
Nice. I remember one of my guests came here, Tamara Adumi, and she told me that when I gave her tea, and then she told me about the study that if you served somebody something warm and you ask them how they felt after that, they'll tell you they felt warm and comfortable. Versus if you serve somebody something cold, they might feel cold and not as comfortable.
Interesting.
And I didn't know that. And I was just been serving all of my guest teas. So they walk in, they're like, tea! I didn't even ask for it. So it's one of those ways, I guess, of helping people or their guests get comfortable. So if you could just share more specifics about, and more in detail about how does coaching help you interview people? So
coaching is all about kind of asking questions. It's about exploring what's in the space between you and your client. And interviewing someone for a podcast is a very similar skill set. You need the person you're interviewing to feel comfortable. You need to be able to kind of go with them wherever they're going, because they're not necessarily going to stick within the questions or the guidelines that you have for the episode. And that was a hard lesson I learned the first season. That just because you title the episode something and you tell them that's what we're talking about, that's not where your guest is necessarily going to go.
Wow, that's a very good point.
Yeah, but like, I'm not doing investigative journalism, right? I'm not going in and being like, tell me what you did to the girls.
Yes,
you know what
yes,
I mean?
yes.
You know, it's not that kind of thing. So you kind of just have to be able to be comfortable with the person and just go with them wherever they're going. And coaching really helps you kind of learn how to sit in that space and be comfortable with the discomfort, if that makes sense.
I love that. So we're talking about CoActive Coaching. So it's something, what does CoActive stand for? CoActive is about co-leading together, correct? Like
it's
about doing.
The doing and the being.
Yes. It's been a while since I did CTI. It's been like 4 or 5 years. But I completely agree with you, man. Like creating the space, holding the space, open-ended questions, the different levels of listening. You spoke about how to listen to the environment and the energy, and that's pretty cool. I think that these skills help you in life, man, with everything.
With everything, yeah. No, I think it's a very good skill set to have just in general.
Yeah. So what other cool topics do you guys cover in your podcasts?
So with Millennial Mirrors, we have Millennial Mirrors is more topical in the sense that every episode I have a specific topic. Season 1, I did things like mental health. I did things like fear of failure. Abe, like I said, definition of success. What does making an impact mean to you? So that was kind of season 1. Season 2, we are doing things. I'm doing some things quite differently. So, for example, I've had my first roundtable discussion where I had 3 guests, and we got to talk about a topic. So I did 2 episodes. One about what does it mean to be a man in the Middle East, and another episode about what does it mean to be a woman in the Middle East. Just because I think both of those kind of come with their own weights and their own pressures, and people don't necessarily understand the other side as much, or actually care to listen to the other side even.
So what does it mean to be a man in the Middle East?
Well, you'll have to listen to my episode, and then you'll find out. It's already out on Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Download today and enjoy the episode.
People don't come onto a podcast to talk about something unless they want to talk about it. And so it's not as tough as you would think. Like, you don't need to lead them anywhere. If you kind of open up the question, they just take you in some of the most amazing and interesting directions.
I'm trying to think of my answer to what does it mean to be a man in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I agree with you in terms of not being able to show emotions, because I remember maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was having a fight with my dad, and not having a fight, but we were kind of arguing.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point I got so emotional, I was gonna cry. And then halfway through, I was like, damn, why am I fighting crying? Why couldn't I just cry? I mean, he's my dad. He's seen me cry before.
Right.
But still, as a man, as a grown-up, I wasn't able to
necessarily fully express that.
Yeah, I just let that go, you know? So I've really been realizing how, okay, so there's a thin line between like, it's okay to cry and just sobbing every time you see something happen in front of you.
Well,
you know
no,
what I mean?
definitely.
Like, that's where the fun discussions come into play. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you can see people that are just too emotional and people that are too rigid. So finding that perfect balance or dance or that middle ground is pretty tricky. What do you think?
I think it's not about necessarily. It's about not being allowed to. You know what I mean? It's because it's not about, okay, he's someone's being too emotional. I think the issues are, we've put all these kind of boundaries on what you're allowed to do or be as a man and what you're allowed to do or be as a woman. And that's where I was kind of trying to take the conversation. Now, whether you just are crying every single day, that's a whole different issue. Whether you're a woman or a man, that's going to be a problem for you if
That's
you're
what the mental health episode.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and there you can go listen to the mental health. Exactly. I will pitch my episodes every which way you can.
Every 2 minutes it's coming
Every
in.
2 minutes I'm like, that's episode 9.
No, but I mean that really that makes me think, what does it mean to be a man in the Middle East? All right, so if you want to just ask the majority of people, they might say the man should be the provider, the man should take care of his family, the man should, I don't know. It's pretty tricky. I don't know. What do you guys think? What does it mean to be a man in the Middle East? And what does it mean to be a woman in the Middle East? So it's interesting. It's very interesting. I would love to hear that.
I didn't have any answers to any of these questions, which is why I asked. So many people's definition of success is so linked to their financial success. Because that's the most tangible and easy way to kind of clock someone for whether or not they're successful. You just look at them. Are they wearing expensive things? Are they driving expensive cars? Do they live in a mansion? Okay, that person's successful. Check. But that's not necessarily what I think most people, if they looked truly inside into what kind of made them feel content or made them feel kind of good about themselves or made them feel happy, they'd realize that most of those things are not really what kind of drives that. So I thought it was important to kind of have an episode discussing that, just because it's so easy to get dragged down into that hole of, if I just earn this much and I just buy this car and I just am able to go and take that Instagram picture in this vacation spot, then finally people will see me as this and finally I'll be happy, when that's not the reality of it. And you might fall for that trap in your early 20s, but one would hope that by your late 20s you've kind of gone out of it. But that's unfortunately not the case for a lot of people, I think.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's very true, man. I mean, we're living in an age where success is determined by a lot of factors, and it's determined by the amount of followers you have. It's determined by the amount of money you have.
Yeah.
So all of these things really come into play. But I mean, it's pretty tricky with this technology era and evolution that we're going through. Because I was talking about this the other day. I said that 200-300 years from now, people are going to look back and say, whew, the humans that lived through this curve, what did they do? Did they take advantage of what was going on? I'm really curious to know what's going to happen like 200 or 300 years when they look back on this curve that's happening in humanity. You know, it's like the agricultural revolution or and everything that happened with the industrial revolution. Yeah. So this revolution that's happening right now, I'm really curious on just studying the effect of this on kids, on relationships, on happiness, on success.
So I did an interview with Anas Bukhash, and the episode was entitled Digital Identity, because I feel like this is the first era, and we are the first kind of generation that goes through this, where your digital identity is almost as important as your real life identity. 100%. And it needs to be curated, and it needs to be taken care of, and it needs to be kind of like studied, and you need to think about a strategy for it, like you know what I mean? Like I remember when I first started getting in, you know, when I graduated university and you'd like be interviewed for a job, they'd be like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I feel like that's kind of how you have to think about your digital identity now. Where do you see your digital identity in 5 years? Like, what is your LinkedIn connections? What are your LinkedIn connections looking like? How many followers do you have? What's your color scheme on your Instagram page? Are you more Twitter or Insta or Facebook? Like, what do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, and to a certain extent, you're given mixed messages, right? Because you're told be authentic, because authenticity is all that matters. But at the same time, curate everything before you post it, and it's a completely conflicting message, right?
100%.
And somehow like be your most authentic self, but as long as that self looks great with a filter, you know what I mean, and doesn't wear the same outfit twice when it's, you know, and you're like, true. It's crazy. And so I think it's just one of those things that's very interesting, and all my episodes are always about kind of trying to bring awareness to how you're living your life. So that's why it's called a mirror. Like, it's to hold up a mirror, take a look. If you like what you see, great. If you don't, maybe make some changes, maybe be a little more self-aware with how you're dealing with things. And again, if you're one of those people that is, you know, very heavily into their social media and you're happy and you're doing well, then great. But if you're doing something that is making you feel a conflict on the inside, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling fake, if you are constantly on there looking at people living a better life than you and just feeling depressed, then maybe it's time to look at your habits and look at how you're managing your digital identity. You know what I mean?
I love that digital identity name. Who comes up with these names, man? You should be a copywriter. Wallah, these are really cool. And I agree with everything you're saying, man.
See, I always say this. I feel like as a culture, we were always, because we're so collective, and because it's not just about you, it's about your extended family, it's about your neighborhood, and it's about all these kinds of things. Whenever you step outside your door, even before social media, before the digital age, before all of that, you represented not just yourself, you represented so much more than yourself. And so there was always this awareness of how you're presenting yourself to the world that maybe didn't necessarily exist as much in the Western in the Western world, where like at the age of 18 you kind of just leave the house and you see your family on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and you know, and that's pretty much it, right? Here you step outside your door every day and generally you run into people who know you, who know your family, who know about, and so it's constantly on your mind. And I feel like what's happened with social media is that's just kind of taken those habits and just hyper exploded them, right? Because now I have so many more eyes on me. It's not about just, oh, I'm in this restaurant and there's like these 30 people around me that I have to worry about. Now whatever I post on here can be seen anywhere and can be forwarded and be sent out. And so it just becomes, there's this almost like sense of constant, I guess, fear about how you're being perceived, because you're always able to be perceived. Someone can go onto your feed at any time, right? There's never a moment of just privacy anymore. And when you're kind of trained to really think about how you present yourself to the public from a very young age, that affects you, I think, in a different way. So the saying is generally like, eat what you want, but dress, eat how you please, but dress to please people, to please others, to please what society is going to say. And I understand that. I understand the importance of a saying like that for my father's generation. My father is 79, and for his father's generation, because back in those days, you had to fit in order to survive. I mean, there was, you were in the hay or the tribe or whatever it was, and you had to fit in with the people around you. If you didn't fit in, you're left out, and you can't survive by yourself. Mm-hmm. So obviously, those sayings have a root in something that really does make sense. Mm-hmm. But in today's day and age, eat what you want, dress how you want. Well, like nas batafa, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Really, because people are gonna whoever is going to look for people who are gonna accept you for who you are, and don't look for approval. You know what I mean? I think there's a very big difference between acceptance and approval, and people have to understand that. I don't expect all my friends to approve of all my decisions. I don't approve of all my friends' decisions, but I accept them for who they are, and they accept me for who I am. Same thing with my family. You know what I mean? And I think there's a very important distinction to be made there that a lot of people don't bother making. Yeah, surround yourself by people who accept you, and try to be accepting of others. But I don't have to approve of everything that people do. But you know what? That is who so-and-so is. C'est la vie, you know what I mean?
So I don't have to agree with them, but I accept whatever they're doing.
Peak experience, I think, is a really cool one. I think this is one that's really easy for kind of everyone to do. Mm-hmm. Peak experience basically is when you remember a time when you were truly happy, and you could feel your body vibrating with happiness. And you kind of just really write down what that experience was and what made that experience important and made you feel that great. And I think that's a really great way of figuring out what makes you happy and what makes you resonate. Because generally when you do peak experience with people, the memories they have are all about things like connection, adventure, excitement, and it's not the things that they would typically associate with happiness, and it's not the things they've been working themselves to the bone for. And so doing peak experience, I think, is a really cool way of really giving someone a quick view into what actually makes them feel alive.
One thing knowing your mission statement, and another thing knowing the different aids that show up,
Yeah.
And it's okay to have different aids. And that's what I learned from CTI, going back to being authentic. I realized that being authentic doesn't mean being the same aid around everyone.
Yeah.
It's about being different aids, but holding the same values.
Yeah.
And values was a huge thing for me too that I learned from CTI. And value is a word that we throw around
a
lot. But when you ask somebody what are your core values, they could just get stuck.
Yeah. Most people won't. Well, or they'll just kind of throw the values that they've been told are their values. But then if you ask them, if you start digging deep into how they run their life, you realize that those aren't their values.
Exactly.
Or those aren't their values that they're currently honoring, let's say. Yeah.
I like that. You see, that's CTI lingo. Honoring. Yeah. No, but you're right. If I tell people, if you want to know somebody's values, go through their day. If they wake up early, they eat something healthy, they go to the gym, they see family, they work hard. There you go. You got family, health, work, exercise, for example, or whatever, self-discipline, Mm-hmm. So I think just going through your lives. And another cool exercise that I noticed when I went to discover some of my values is when you're sitting with somebody and you get annoyed. That's a beautiful way of knowing a value.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell them more about this?
So basically, if you're sitting with someone and you're feeling annoyed or you're feeling triggered, it's generally because they're either stepping. Mm-hmm. There's two reasons that could be. At least that's how we're trained. Either they're stepping on a value that you have. So for example, they're being unfair and you value fairness. So hence you are being, you're starting to feel annoyed. Or they're currently doing something that you are uncomfortable sitting with. Meaning that, for example, if they're being extremely vulnerable and you're very closed off, you're automatically going to feel uncomfortable because of the fact that you're not comfortable with vulnerability. So those are the kind of two things that kind of pop up.
And it's a beautiful way for me personally to learn about myself
Yeah.
in any given situation.
Yeah.
Right? Like in the radio while I'm driving a car and I just don't like this radio host, I'll just ask myself, why didn't I like the radio host? And that's a chance for me to discover a new value.
Yeah.
You know?
Because it's also a great way to be like, okay, why am I uncomfortable right now? What am I uncomfortable sitting with right now? What is happening? Okay, and why? And then like you go back to like, okay, what's going on that, you know, what made me uncomfortable with this? And you know, then you get to go back and explore your past and figure out what the hell happened.
And your childhood. Like, guys, getting to know yourself. I used to think that this is all cliche, but honestly, guys, it's the best gift you can give yourself. It'll help you in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll know why you're lazy. You'll know why you're attracting the same people in your life every time, over and over and over again.
And you don't have to do it through like a coaching course. Like for example, even before I went to the coaching course and I spoke about this, and that's why doing a mental health episode was really important to me. I actually had Dr. Naif Mtawa on.
Shout out to Dr. Naif Mtawa.
He was amazing. Because I went to therapy for like 3 years before I even went to CTI. And that was just an amazing experience of just self-exploration and figuring out what's going on and like how, and all these different things that I hadn't even realized I thought about, or like, you know, figuring out what my triggers are and how to realize, okay, my stress levels have reached a specific point, I need to start taking care of myself. All these things that like you don't even think about. Like now I know, like if I'm driving and if I'm having an argument with someone in my head, that means my stress levels have reached a point where it's time for me to like go to and like spend a weekend by the pool or whatever, you know what I mean, to kind of bring them back down. It's like you learn these things about just how to manage yourself. It's not necessarily that you don't have to be crazy to go to therapy. It's just sometimes a way of just learning to manage your own little quirks and habits and stuff, you know what I mean?
Mshari, it was an amazing episode.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
No, honestly,
I haven't done an episode on camera before. This is actually no, I've done one, but yeah.
You should, man.
No. No.
Hey, no. No, I agree.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Habibi, man. Before we end this show, I'd like to acknowledge you.
Oh, thank you.
No, honestly, man, I think you are very brave. You're really kind. You're giving.
Oh.
Yeah, man. I really think you are. And I think you are very, very, very adventurous.
Sure, let's use that word.
Talk about receiving that. No, honestly, man, I think you're amazing for everything you're doing.
Much.
Although I don't really know you personally until today, we spoke a bit more.
Yeah.
But I met this dude 2 days ago, face to face. So thank you so much for being on my show.
No, this was really cool. I love this. This was such an awesome setup, and I've been watching you on Instagram and your episodes and stuff. So I'm honored to be on the Dardish show.
Habibi, man. This is your camera. If you have a message,
sure. Bye, guys, and you can find me on my Instagram at Mshari Alonaizy. Also, Millennial Mirrors season 2 is currently out. You can find that on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Rami or wherever. And yeah, go check it out. Bye.
On that note, take care, guys, and we'll see you soon.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby, I feel real good and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time, and I came to groove. The whole band's here, and we came to move. Got a fresh haircut and 2 new shoes. We're here all night like we got nothing to lose. I'm coming out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now. Baby, watch out now. Watch out. I'm on the move, I'm going up. I'm a man on a mission with no missions, and I'm looking for love. Oh, I'm just looking for love. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby, I feel real good, and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good, baby. Watch out now. Everybody watch watch out. Last call for some alcohol, and don't forget to tip. The sun went down, but we still rolling. The band's still going, playing all the hits. I guess I'm now too legit to quit. I'm coming out the jacket, cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming tonight, and I can't be beat. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out. I'm on the move, I'm going up. I'm a man on a mission with no missions, and I'm looking for love. Oh, I'm just looking for love. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good.
Watch out now.
Cause baby, I feel real good, and I wish I would.
Watch out now.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good,
Watch out
baby.
now.
Everybody watch out.
Watch out now.
Everybody watch out.